Welcome to the On Pace podcast. We are here today with Guillaume. How do you say your name?
Guillaume. Yeah.
Guillaume Arthus, a French ultramarathon runner who races an ultra a month from races such as UTMB, Tour de Gand, and the infamous Barkley Marathon. This September, Guillaume.
No, you're not gonna get it. You can call me William. It's the same name.
William. All right, we're going with William because it's much
Yeah.
easier. William will be running across the Via Alpine, which is 2,650 kilometer trail from Slovenia to Monaco. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. So we were having a little chat before, but we'll go over it again. Why'd you get into ultra running?
Yeah, I got into ultra running because it wasn't for the distance itself. I've never been racing just to have bigger figures and trying to impress someone else or something like that. It was just about trying to explore the Alps and trying to know, okay, what's going on here? What do we have? Like, how does it look? And how far can we go and explore those territories where you typically cannot go on a regular hike because it's too far, or you need to stay in a refuge on a hut or something like that. And now there's all that field of possibilities that you can access to because you're going faster. And so for me, running and ultra running was that. It was always about trying to explore new places and and discover new trails. And sometimes it's during a race and during an ultra marathon. Sometimes it's just a micro adventure of 2 days, or how it's going to be by the end of the summer. It would be much longer.
Yeah, that's a great reason to get into it. So, you run an ultra a month pretty much just so you can travel around and explore new places that you want to go. That's a pretty crazy thing to get into just
Yeah.
for the sake of exploration.
Yeah,
Why?
it looks weird at if you look at it like that, because it's you just met someone and then they tell you they're racing a ultra a month, and then 10 years ago everybody was telling you should not run more than a marathon per year.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit weird, but the idea is that, well, first, the marathon a year thing is, it's kind of not really true. But the idea also is that because I'm training, actually. So in the last 5 years, I've been racing all those ultras, not only to explore different places, but also to kind of test myself and try to test my limits and to see what I can do so that I can be ready to basically run across the Alps. So, now I can say, and it's kind of sounds really catchy and really cool. It's like I'm racing an ultra per month, but the reality is like it will be the equivalent for someone training for a marathon to say I'm doing a long run per month.
Yeah.
And that will be something similar. And so it's just a matter of scale. But now my long runs that people would call long run for a marathon, my equivalent is like it's 100 miles, for example, right? So
Yeah.
it's just a different scale. But the reality of the training principles and stuff like that, it's basically exactly the same. It's just a little bit bigger.
Yeah. How'd you get that idea? What came into your mind to run
Yeah.
2,650 kilometers?
Yeah, I got that question quite a lot. Like, why? But like, okay, maybe you can do it, but why? And I think that's just because I can. I mean, there's no other reason than that. And I work a lot with objectives, and I organize my entire life around projects, around ideas that I try to achieve. And it was the end of 2014, and I finished UTMB,
Yeah.
and it was supposed to take me 10 years to reach UTMB, but it only took me 4. And I'm like, crap, I had that 10-year project, and I'm already there. What am I going to do? I'm kind of screwed. And so I'm like, okay, you need to find something to do. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, I mean, you really like the Alps. And then by that time, I discovered that route, which is called the Via Alpina, which is basically doing the full arc of the Alps. And I'm like, oh, maybe you can do that. And I'm like, you have no idea how to train for that. I mean, this is stupid. It's going to take you years. And then in the second part of my brain say, well, that means this is exactly what you need to do, because that's going to occupy you for so many years, and then you be able to actually do it, and you train for it. And so to me, it was almost obvious that I needed to do it.
I
And that's,
understand. I understand what
you
you
see
mean.
what I'm saying? It's like, and nobody told me to do it. And Potentially there's a record to break, and I'm probably going to smash it by 10 to 15 days. But the reality is I don't care. It's more about trying to have the adventure and explore the Alps and do something that I love and dedicate 5 years of my life to do that. Besides, regular working and stuff like that. But basically, fully commit to a project, and then you're like, okay, there we go. This is what we're gonna do.
And you're filming for this for a documentary, right?
Yeah. So there's going to be like quite a big documentary made out of it. Like I'm working with a professional team, and it's going to be big. I'm self-financed, so obviously it's a huge cost. But I think if you run the Alps like that, self-supported, so without any kind of assistance outside of what's available on the trail naturally, that would be a shame not to film it and to be able to share the experience with others, because I mean, this is going to be beautiful. I've run some bits of it, different locations in the Alps and stuff like that. Not exactly the track I'm going to be using, but quite a few different parts in the Alps, and I know it's going to be epic. And not having that on film would be a shame for anyone. So I'm like, okay, here is my money, take it all, and hopefully the documentary will be good enough that people really like it and be able to share it and I don't know, maybe picked up by a network or something like that, and I can make back my money. But honestly, even if I don't make back the money and make 0 penny out of it, I mean, it's still worth it, because I would have been able to live that experience, and I will have that memory of a lifetime in my mind and be able to also share it. And if just one person is inspired to go for a run because they saw that thing, it was worth it.
Oh, that's the point of this podcast as well. If it inspires even one person to change their life, that's worth it for me.
Yeah.
So
just one's enough.
How'd you go about getting a team to film this? So who's working with you? What's the plan for that?
So I'm going to be working with Peña Vertical. It's a French team, but they're like really good. Like they are the ones usually covering for UTMB, a lot of 8KT attempts. They are like top notch. I mean, you cannot really do better than that, honestly. I looked a lot into the different teams, and there's about 3 or 4 really good teams on the planet, and this is one of them. And I like their style better than the other ones too. So I'm happy we find a way to actually work together. That's actually fantastic. And then it's all going to be really properly edited, and the cinematic is going to be absolutely crazy. And on my side, I'm going to be carrying also cameras on my own also from the parts when they're not going to be there. And I've been filming quite a while now, so I made about 100 different videos of trail running already, and I think I have about 1,000 hours of rush of the trails from everywhere on the planet. So I know how to handle a camera, and now we're going to be able to have that massive stuff of the entire house and having a pretty sweet 52-minute documentary about it. And I mean, I'm excited by the running, but I'm also really excited about that documentary is going to be
capturing it.
Yeah, it's going to be epic. I mean, it's going to be good, and it's not going to be about like following some dude running in the mountain. It's going to be much more about trying to understand what are the Alps and what kind of like terrain we're exploring and stuff like that. So it's not like an ego boost kind of thing movie. It's much more about like, hey, this is what it takes to actually run an FKT and run that kind of thing, and give the people like, holy crap, there's a lot of work in there, but that's really awesome. I want to do this.
So so before you started running, like how'd you get into this? Were you in film school? What's the story?
No, I went into running by mistakes and filmmaking by mistake too. So story of my life, man. It's so I started running because I was a swimmer before, and for university when I was about 19, I had to move from Paris to Angers, which is a little town south of Paris. So I no longer had a swimming pool, no longer had a swim team, none of that. And in the university, there was no access really to any kind of swimming facility. And basically, I knew I was screwed and I had to drop my sport. And I was really pissed. And instead of destroying everything in my room when I was living at my parents' house, well, the next day I went out for a run. And that day, I actually had never had really a proper run in my life before that. But that was the only thing available because my bike was broken. And so I went, and there was a little lake next to my parents' house, about a mile away. And then I went around and looked the little lake, and I was just counting laps. And at that time there was no GPS watches, there was nothing. I was just counting laps, and then I went back home. And I went back home actually 2 hours later. So my father, well, as I walk in, is like, "So what did you do? Because you've been gone for 2 hours." Like, "Well, I was running." Like, "And how far did you go?" It's like, I had no idea. And then I looked online on the map, and then turns out I run a half marathon. And so I'm like, "Oh, okay." And about 2 years later, I actually started running properly marathons and stuff like that. And then he went out of control pretty fast. But basically, I started by running by stick. And for video making, it's almost the same thing. I mean, we were with friends when I was 8 and 9 years old. We were like a small group of friends, and we were really into that TV show called Stargate, right?
Yeah.
And we basically recreated an episode of Stargate, like everything from writing the script to editing everything. And so um, we were filming with small cameras that cannot hold more than 10 seconds. And so we have to rush up and down the stairs trying to get the rush and stuff like that. And so it took us about a year and a half. But I was always, I mean, almost as long as I can remember, I've been making videos. And so when I studied ultra running, and I already have that video background, and I'm like, can we do something together? And I'm like, okay, maybe. And so I imported a GoPro from the US, because at that time in 2012, well, GoPro was not sold outside of California, right?
Yeah.
So you had to actually directly contact them and get an import permit to get it, which I did. So I might have one of the very first GoPro that ever reached
Oh man, that's
France.
cool.
Yeah. And so I started filming because my mother was scared to death of what was ultra running. And that's how kind of it started. And I'm like, actually, more than my mother should be interested in seeing this. This is really, really cool what happens up there. And then it kind of started from there.
Just hasn't stopped. And
Not really. Yeah, it
now
just
you're
got better. It
yeah, now
just,
you're gonna run 2,650 kilometers and film it.
yeah,
Just
yeah. And if I told myself when I started running that, about 10 years ago, that I was going to do that, I was like, stop it, you're crazy. Like, don't, don't. The path seems so far away. And now looking back, it's like, okay, it was kind of obvious. But it's only obvious because you look back, right? When you're in it, you're like, you have no idea what you're doing, and you're failing so many times, and you have to give up a lot in different races, and then you go back at it, you go tougher races, and sometimes you say, I'm definitely going to fail at this one, and then you succeeded, and you're like, that was not going to supposed to happen. What happened here? And that's the moment you start to go. And some is that the absolute opposite. It's like, there's no way I'm not finishing this, and then you're like, nope, I'm screwed, game over. And then you're like, okay, what happened there? And you learn from that. And it's all
yeah.
about that, trying to get there. And so I think for people who want to try to get into ultra running and increasing the distances, well, they have to think about, not about like what's the distance itself, but what kind of the experience they're going to have out there. And if they focus more on what they want to do, like what kind of land they want to explore, what they want to see, what they want to experience, it's going to be much easier than just piling up on the miles, because it's just a number in the end. You can get into, it can get into your head and into your, like, it breaks you. It really breaks you just to think about the numbers. So you have to think about how to not do that and focus on something else. So the motivation has to be different than just, I want to do an ultra because the ultra name is really cool. That's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah, that's not a very good reason to get into it.
no.
Because when you start to get obsessed with that distance and you're sitting at home just thinking, well, I could do that. And then you're about 30, 40 kilometers in and you still got 100 kilometers to go and you're
Yeah,
broken. That cool name Ultra doesn't seem so cool anymore.
no. It only sounds cool on paper at that moment.
Yeah, it looks cool from sitting at home from a screen watching you run
Yeah.
across. So you partook in the Barkley Marathon.
Yes.
What was that like?
Crazier than you think. It's a really wide weekend. So for people that don't know what, Barkley is one of the toughest, if not the toughest race that is on the planet. You have to run, 5 loops in a very difficult condition. So the weather is changing all the time. You have 6 or 7 different kind of weather during the same weekend, and then you have to run in a Frozen Head State Park in Tennessee, and you have those loops that you need to do. So 5 loops, trying to collect some pages. There's no trail, there's no marking, there's nothing. You just have a map, and you have to find those pages to conclude the loop. And it's atrocious. It's incredibly hard. And to give you an idea, there's 15 people that finished successfully the 5 loops at Barclay in more than 1,000 attempts. Yeah,
so crazy.
So and you have to keep in mind that the people that comes there, I mean, they're not beginners. I mean, even just to get there, it's really hard. And I'm not going to tell you how to get it. If you really want to race, you have to find it on your own. But the idea is, it's really hard to get in, and it's really hard to get even vetted to have the proper experience to get in. And then even then, it's hard to register by itself. But it's really hard people and tough people that get there, and even so, they get crushed to death. So it's really no small feat, and it's really an experience where it's absolutely incredible. I mean, there's a campground there, which is basically the race HQ, if you can call that a race HQ. There's basically a barbecue, a fire pit, and chicken cooking, and that's a HQ. So yeah, but it's one of those places where if you're really an ultra runner, you feel at home instantly, because you can start conversations like, so I was in the middle of that 200-miler and I was 60 hours in, and nobody bats an eye when you start that conversation like that, right? Because that's the expectation of everyone. And like, okay, now you set up the framework, now you can discuss about what you were going to say, what's your anecdote. But if you're in a regular situation, it's like, what do you mean 200 miles? You mean like by foot? You mean 60 hours, but did you slept already? Or, and you have all those questions that you don't have out there. And it's absolutely incredible. I mean, besides the race, which is atrocious and terrible and the worst thing in the world, but that's what makes it absolutely fantastic. I mean, the contrast of it is that it's a big family, and everybody's there to break the race, and nobody's competing against each other. I mean, it's about trying to get that race done. And
yeah, it's
most of
completely
the time,
against the race with that one, right?
Yeah.
You're not competing with anyone else, because 15 finishes out of 1,000 signups is
yeah.
It's
yeah.
So what event has been your favorite so far? What stands out to you as your
I like really, really weird ones. So I've been specialized in the last years to events that really try to take you mentally and take you down. And so I've 200 kilometers in a tunnel, for example. So you have 1 mile tunnel and you go back and forth in it. So that's mentally really challenging. So I really like those kind of things. I like to stuff where you have a lot of autonomy and you have to safe navigate and stuff like that. So there's a race called Viking Way, which is 250K, which is about 130 miler. You have 36 hours to complete, and you're on your own. There's no real marking. I mean, there's somehow of a marking, which is off a regular path, and you have to follow that. And then you just have to be able to navigate in there and try to complete that. And so that's the events I really like. And it's some events you're there to have the name of your curriculum. So UTMB is one of those. I mean, but it's not the best race on the planet. What makes it a really great race is that you have 10,000 people doing your sport in Chamonix the same weekend. That's fantastic.
That's cool.
Yeah, but the race itself, it's okay. It's not marvelous. It's not, it's a good race, right? But 400 miles is way better everywhere. But it's iconic, and it's around Mont Blanc, and it's really nice weekend. But you just move 5 valley down the left, and you get like a treacherous 100-miler, which is atrocious under the fit. But the landscape, you're running on ridges the entire time instead of bottom of valleys, and it's fantastic. And you see what I'm saying is that there's the price of fame, and you want to race something because everybody does it. but the reality, you can take a low-key event next to your house and stuff like that, and you probably can have a better run there. And so
Yeah.
it's also about trying to find those low-key events, uh, which are really hard. Events with a tough cutoff where finishing means something. Because, if you can walk and moonwalk the entire race, did you really finish it? I don't know. But when you have a race where the expectation is that you have 80% of the people going to get kicked off by the kickoff, by the cutoff time, because it's supposed to be run and it's supposed to be kept at high pace. When you cross the line, whenever you position, it means something. And I
Yeah, I
think
like
that's what
that.
I really like about races and the newer traveling scene. So we're getting a little bit further away from UTMB and those races, which are mainstream and more easy to complete. It's still hard to complete UTMB, right? Don't get me wrong, but it's way harder, right? It's like so there's a race in the Sahara, which is a 250K stage race, which is called Marathon des Sables, which is desert of the marathons of the desert, and basically it would be really hard. You have to keep your own food and stuff like that. So that's you
Yeah.
have a autonomy management stuff, but there's no navigation because basically there's so many people that you just follow the guy in front of you. And then the cutoff time is walking 4 kilometers an hour for the entire stages. So everybody can, like a good walker, can finish it. And those
Yeah.
guys have been calling themselves the hardest race on the planet for 30 years. And then there are events like Barclay where you have less than 0.5% that ever finished. And you're like,
Yeah.
who do you think is the worst one? And which one is actually the hardest to complete and to achieve? And then I think that's what I really like about ultramarathon is you have a little bit for everyone. If you want to have a big race and a big community all around you and stuff like that, you have those races which are really fun and really nice. And you also have those more low-key events that are little less known from the public, even from within the ultra community, but where everybody that goes there is like sharp on and so like fast and knowledgeable about their own body that it makes it even greater by itself because it just you have that family aspect. It's just no longer more than a gathering of people doing the same thing, but it's really people like in osmosis, like working together to beat the race. And to me, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's like a great community of people pushing each other, but not pushing each other down.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about lifting everybody up, and that's absolutely fantastic about what's fantastic about ultra running. It's about like whatever you do, basically, you have opportunities there's always going to be someone better anyway, but you have also opportunities to help the people that you can help because you are more have more experience at that moment or you are at a higher point right now when you're in the middle of that same race in the same place, but that person is just hitting right bottom mentally and you're trying to lift him up and then 5 hours later that's going to be the opposite, and so that's
Yeah.
that's
So I'm
absolutely
sure it's
fantastic.
like a benefit in both ways because
Yeah.
you have people around that are going to be willing to help you, and you helping someone else might bring you
Yeah.
up more. It's just a great way to go about a race because you're all out there for the same reason, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no
Yeah,
reason to
it's
be eating.
fantastic.
So, what's your normal week like? Like, how do you get ready to run an ultra pretty much every month?
Yeah. So my training week. So my season is about 8 months. So I don't do 1 year seasons. I do 8 month seasons.
Okay.
And at the beginning of the season, I will have about 2 month training, like hardcore training period in which I'm going to run about 150K, 160K per week. So I will have in those, I will have a marathon on Tuesday and marathon on Sunday, just running, and then I will kind of do 5 runs, like 5 runs in total. So I will plug 3 other runs in which that will make me the total of mileage that I want to have. And I'm going to be doing that for 5 or 6 weeks consecutively. So, that will mean during that period, I will have run anything between 12, 10 and 15 marathons.
Okay.
And that will make my base layer, and trying to build from there, and trying to put some kind of speed work, which is much more long interval trainings of 20-minute blocks than speed work on the track. And then I would switch to kind of race mode, in which actually the races are long runs, and you basically go to 80K or 50 miler, and you race it, but you don't burn yourself out. You're just keeping it at a pace of 100 miler, for example, right?
Okay.
And so you have a bib on you and stuff like that, but you're not actually like, you run it, but you don't race it, right? And then during that 8-month period, I will have 2 events in which I will actually race them, like give it all, crush it all, like let's go, and from there you just keep plugging out as much training you can, and some rest periods, so that you don't break your body, and
that's
then
a big thing.
yeah.
There's a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, like, when you go out and really race a race, it takes like 2 to 4 weeks to really recover after that, because your body's just completely broken.
When you fully race it,
It's
yeah. There's really a difference between running a race and racing it. There's absolutely a difference, and I think that's what the marathon commentary about, not more than a marathon per year comes from. It's about, like, if you destroy yourself like properly with a proper wrecking training, the end for that lasts a year, I get it why you shouldn't race more than a marathon a year. I totally get it. But the idea is that if you run them at half speed, and you just, pacing through them, and just, try to just build up to something bigger later, you can do twice a week. There's no problem with that. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that if you start running, you can do 2 marathons per week. No, don't do that, right? And probably nobody think that way, but it's just to make it clear, that's not what I'm saying, right? It's about, you build up to that, right? You start by running once a week, then twice a week, and then you increase some of the distances. One of the runs becomes a interval training, and one of the runs become a longer session, and then you put a third one. It builds up over the years, and then that's why it's important when you start running, or you start running, or whatever the distance and whatever the intensity you're trying to get at. Don't do 0 to 100.
Yes,
Like,
that's a huge thing.
Like, don't try to beat the guy that has been doing this for 10 years. This is not going to work right now. You have to try to get your own pace and speed. The increase could be sharp. Don't get me wrong. I mean, for some people, it's really sharp. But it has to be some kind of progression and steadiness, and it does include resting. Like, don't run every day. I mean,
when I advise people to start running, I usually just tell them every second day, and keep it at least at first light. Just don't go out there. Don't try to crush it. Just pick a nice fair distance, run it light, and then let your body recover the next day, and then try again the next day. And if you can increase a kilometer, increase a kilometer. And the first race, if you're going to sign up,
get into that sweet spot about trying to basically, you should be going back to one of the previous distances you have been running, and you were pushing before at the same pace, but now you should feel comfortable in it. And that's the moment you're really going to be able to track your progress. And you should not be increasing and trying to increase the difficulty every time you run, because that's a proper way to injury. You would rather actually try to make a plateau there, stay a little there, and then try to go for the other one, because that will help you to build some muscle memory and stuff like that. And when you're at the second plateau, from time to time, just go take the one below and then go back at it, and you will see the difference. And that's the moment you will be able to track your progress. And I think that's really important, so that people don't crash themselves to death. And when they start, they're like, okay, I need to run every day. It's like, no, you don't. Like, please don't. You're gonna get injured, and sooner or later they get injured too. And it's like, I'm not gonna say I told you, but I kind of did.
Well, it's really hard to tell somebody new that's really excited getting into their training that you gotta hold off and just get in some runs. And
not only the physical part when they get injured, but they can also talk them, like they're gonna get bored so fast if you do something every day. It can really get into your mind, and it's not healthy at all. Like, don't do it.
It's mentally better just to take a day and want
Yeah,
to run the next day
exactly.
instead
Yeah,
of going out and forcing yourself to run. Because if you're doing that every day, then it becomes like, man, I don't want to run.
exactly. Yeah. And
I
then you
only
stop entirely the activity, and that's really counterproductive.
I never really run, even when I'm training for an event, more than 2 days in a row. I do two, and then I take a day to
Yeah.
do some recovery stuff and just keep my mind fresh and body.
Mm.
Don't just anybody listening, don't try to run every day. It's just gonna wear yourself into the ground. There's no
Yeah.
point to it.
Yeah.
So when you're what kind of gear do you have to get ready to do these ultras? Because that's pretty important when you're out there, right?
Yeah, the gear management is one of the part that people don't have to do on marathons and stuff like that. But in ultras, this is sometimes the difference between hypothermia and finishing a race. So you have to really know your kit and take proper jackets and stuff like that. I mean, there's tremendous amount of resource on the internet that you can dig in, but I mean, the longer you get and the more time you're going to spend on the trail, the more you're going to realize the difference between a $10 t-shirt and a $90 t-shirt.
Yes.
And you're not going to see the difference between a $90 t-shirt and a $10 t-shirt for a 5 minute run. I mean, there's no point. You won't see the difference. But when you have been in it for the last 12 hours and you still need to shred sweat, the performance of your t-shirt is really going to get there. So it doesn't mean that the price of a t-shirt, like the performance of a price of a t-shirt, is indexed by its price, but it is kind of related to, I mean, most of the time. And it's kind of the same thing for the jacket, especially waterproof jacket. You know, the standard norm is a 10K jacket. So the first 10K is for waterproofness.
Yeah.
So it's how much water column. So if you put a column of water on 1 centimeter square, like how much of that, what's the height of that column? And it basically shows how much water pressure you can get from the outside of your jacket. So how much waterproof your jacket is. And the second 10K in a 10K jacket is breathability. So it's how much like vapor of air can get out of the fabric. And that's basically a transcription of how much sweat is going to get out. So how much you're protecting from the outside, how much you can evacuate from the inside for the same membrane. And so you have what we call a 10K jacket. It's the standard right now to be called a waterproof jacket. That's the minimum you should have. But then you have jackets that go way up there. So now we get 1515s for a lot of different jackets for all of the brands. And some of them are going like 30K, and way past that. And the idea is that you have to pick the ones you need based on your needs. So if you're just going for a run in the mountain, just always throw a jacket in there, because that's a shell that's going to cover you from wind and also going to cover you from, of course, rain, but also going to keep heat. And so whatever you do, you're going to need a jacket anyway. But for myself, for example, I no longer use 10K jackets because I think they're
The
just okay,
best.
right? But I need jackets where, I mean, if I'm hit by a storm and has been raining for 12 hours, it still need to be behaving properly.
Yeah.
And that means you go way up in the ratings and stuff like that. So the materials get crazy and stuff like that. And that's the moment the price skyrocket too. But that's the moment you have needs that are really different from anyone else, and the price just skyrocket. But it's important like to pick the gear. I mean, there's tons of people making reviews online and stuff like that. So I would encourage people to actually go see that and to try to make them an idea before they go into a shop. Because if they go into a shop, um, they basically going to try to sell what they have in there and the best option they have available, and which is fair. If you have a jacket, you have to pick something basically that fits your needs. And it's important that you understand what kind of condition you're going to get in, and what kind of weather protection you're going to need to have. So for me, the main stuff someone need to pick if you're ultra running is a proper running jacket. And so try what's available online, try to see, but then go to a real shop. Go to a real shop to, oh, come on.
Yeah, she's still going. It's okay.
Yeah,
We'll just
then
keep going. It's not too loud.
go to a real shop to try to try to get fitted on. I mean, don't buy online. There's no point of buying online, but online will be the source on which you get all the information you need to make a proper choice in the shop. And then the shop is going to help you to, like, you're going to be able to fit it. You're going to be able to move in it. You're instantly going to know if it's working for you, and you're going to be able to check the technical aspect of the jacket itself from the information gathered online. So get some info online and then get to your local running shop, and you're probably going to find your good fit.
What's some other important gear that people need to look into, like trekking poles, shoes, nutrition while you're out there?
Yeah. Trekking poles, I removed the trekking poles about 4 years ago. I still run with them in the backpack when I'm doing really long stuff for safety reason. So because you can use a pole and break it down if it's one of those that bends in different bits, you can actually cut those off with a knife and make yourself like something that can fix your arm or something like that if you're in really bad shape. So I still keep that, but just more as a emergency repair kit for my own body. Hopefully, I never had to do it, but I know how to do it. And so trekking poles, I mean, some people use them, some don't. I mean, most of the time, it's going to slow you down actually, because you're going to try to use them and you don't even realize that you could have been running that bit. So sometimes it's not actually useful. It's a counterintuitive stuff, and most of the people don't know how to use poles. And they will be using their upper body and their poles, and that will kind of counter the effect of the legs instead of actually like moving it as one motion. You have two motion that's going to fight together, and it's never going to work. So that's one of the tricky bit. And then same for the backpacks. It really depends on what you're carrying and what you want to take with you. And so at the beginning, you're gonna have those massive backpacks, and then the more you get experience, like everything's going to shrink because you're going to have better kit, which is smaller, that packs smaller and everything, and that is lighter. But also because you realize you were taking stuff that you really didn't need. And for nutrition, I'm a really bad example. I bet on anything. I just shred calories. So I'm like, I don't care. Just get anything. And I won't eat a lot of junk food because first of all, I don't like it. Anything that is already prepared, I won't really eat that. So I have a healthy diet in that sense. But we never cut on a beer. I mean, I'm always in for getting a beer, and it's just big volumes basically, and not junk food. But I don't do anything specific for nutrition. And when I'm running itself, never forget that you need salt, and you need a lot of it. So sugar is fine, but sugar is just salt. You need salt. I mean, you sweating salt, and if you only get sugary stuff, I mean, there's gonna problem. You're gonna have
cramp up
because cramps, and you're gonna be able to fix the water you're drinking. And I mean, salt, man.
Yeah, I've heard that before. That salt's like pretty much the most important thing you can bring out on those.
Yeah, that can really screw your day. I mean, whoever you are, if you forget to take salt, you're done.
Yeah. So, what do you do for work? Do you just?
I'm an accountant, so I work for PepsiCo, and I'm a reporting analyst. So I'm responsible to gather all the information at the end of the month and financial information and send it to corporate.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a real job, and that's sometimes a question I get because it's like you race an ultra per month, and you're always on the weekends trying like bounce everywhere.
That's exactly
like,
what I was thinking.
Yeah, like how does that work? Like, are you sponsored, or like how does it work? And like, no, I'm not sponsored, and also I actually have a full-time job like most of the people do. So but it does require for your schedule to be really organized. And I'm not watching Netflix anymore.
I don't watch it either.
I don't have time for that. And it's you still have time to spend with your friends and stuff like that, but you have to know what is actual real time and when you're spending time with significant others and stuff like that. Well, I don't have a significant other, so that kind of solved the problem for me. But you have to understand the possibilities you have in your day, and you only have 24 hours. So whatever you do, you have to encompass that, right? But I still have time to find between 10 and 15 hours of training, and the full weekends I will be racings and stuff like that. So it's really doable, even with a full-time job. It does require some commitment, and it requires also to master how to combine moments in your agenda. So, for example, it might take you 40 minutes to get to work, right? In
Yeah.
whatever the way you're commuting, but maybe you can transform that into a 2 hour back ride. And that means that actually you fit it in your regular schedule, a 2 hour back ride in a 1 hour 20 minutes. So you just won literally 40 minutes in your day, right? And if you start to apply that kind of philosophy to kind of all of what you're doing, it changes everything,
Yeah,
because
there's
you
more time
realize
for everything.
exactly you now have time for everything. And so you have time also, you need to rest. And the idea is that but well, maybe when you rest, it's actually the time you're working. If you're physically resting, then you can maybe use your mind to do something else and working on that. And you can also use that to switch between projects. Even if it's two thinking projects, you can, by switching them on and off, you actually can bounce faster on the ideas, and you make progress faster. And so that's the entire philosophy of trying to make it most of your day. And I think that's really important when you try to balance really consuming time running obsession with an actual work. And that's kind of the only way to do it.
I think that's a great message. Like, yeah, I find that for myself, like when I'm having rest days, I'll rather be studying or filming and doing something that's benefiting my training that will help me get further with that. And while I'm training, I'm thinking about ways I can do
Yeah.
more with the recovery. And it's just any time that you have, you can be spent doing something that's going to benefit your career, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Combining moments, that's the key.
Yeah, that's the key, man. I like that. That's a good note. Is there anybody that like inspired you to get into running?
Not really.
Just that
I
run
mean,
around the lake, eh?
the moment I started running was about 10 years ago. And so that's the moment, that was actually the first year Guillaume Jornet won UTMB and made it a thing. Because, before Guillaume Jornet, there was a race there, but it was not really a thing, like something people even have heard about. And
Yeah.
so I can say that. But the reality, it's not like a direct source of inspiration. It's because I started running already. And so I did not have like a father figure of trail running or something like that. But I'm really impressed by, I would say, the women of ultra running lately.
Oh, they're
Uh,
killing it.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
like killers, like stone cold killers. They are fantastic. I mean, Courtney, what she did at Big Backyard was incredible. Um, there is a woman won the Spine, which is a crazy, crazy tough race in the UK. It's they are all over the place now, and it's absolutely fantastic to see that ultra running might be the sport in which we everybody can be level.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
I freaking love that about the sport. It's not even longer about your gender.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
in
it's a
most of the
great thing. It's
sport,
about your mind.
yeah, it's so much about your mind that nothing else matters. But in a lot of sports now, the records for male and female are like really spread apart because biology. Um, but it sounds like it does not apply to ultra running, and I think it's really cool that then you can look at anyone on the field and say like anyone can take it. And I think that's absolutely beautiful, and that's one of the things I also loved about the community now. It's yeah, everybody can get it, and some are runners, and some are just part of the community. So you have race directors too that are also female, and they're it's absolutely fantastic what they're doing. You have Candice Burt that is basically created all those 200 milers in the US. She has a triple crown of 200 milers. And she basically created it from scratch. And one of the 200 milers, she's solely responsible for the creation of 200 milers in the US. And that's, and to me, that's fantastic. It's like someone's like, yeah, I'm taking ownership of this. And everybody's like, yes. And nobody's questioning anything. And nobody even cares anymore if they ever cared about the gender. But
Yeah.
now we see in that community that like women are there, like, and it's incredible. I love it. I love it,
man. That's a great message. Let us know where we can watch some of your stuff and where we can follow you on social media.
Yeah, so you can type my name anywhere on the internet. You're probably gonna find me, but you can so Guillaume Arthus. If you Google that, you will be able to find me. Or you can find me also on my running project page, which is called Runnexplorer. It's like a runner and explorer together, like the double N and everything. I will send it to you. So, but yeah, basically in there you have videos weekly coming from wherever on the planet, and so it can range from literally anywhere. I mean, I run in 40 different countries. I run in weird places like Kosovo and stuff like that. And basically, you bring a camera and you try to show what's the trail there. Sometimes there's a race, sometimes there's not. You know, in 2 weeks I'm going to be in Ukraine. Last week I was at Boston Marathon. 2 weeks before I was in Berlin. It's just trying to getting there, race kind of all over the place, and trying to get some good times and sharing about this.
Yeah, man. Thanks. That was awesome. I'm gonna close it because
Awesome.
there's nothing better to end it on than the equality of sports, of ultra running between the genders, and
yeah, I think it's the future. I mean, and I really hope we're gonna get on those loop events and stuff like that, like big backyard and stuff like that. It might be the format that does that, but I think we can have like a massive accomplishment and then having a woman taking it all. And oh man, I'm really rooting for it. Like
me too,
to me
man.
it's fantastic, and I wish I'm going to be one day in one of those battles, and I will be fine losing, but I will give my best, right? And if I can take it, I mean, no favors there, but I would love to be in one of those battles, and that would be quite fantastic.
That's great, man. All right, we're here with Guillaume Arthus from Runnexplorer. You can find him at that social media handle. You can check out his videos. This is On Pace Podcast. You can find us at www.onpacepodcast.com. We'll be releasing this interview in a few days. I guess you guys won't hear that part. We'll edit that part out. And thanks, man. That was awesome. I really like to talk.
That was awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Welcome to the On Pace Podcast.